Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Jim's 5am Club. It's Friday morning, end of the week, and it stopped raining for a moment. Just enough time for me to go on a walk and talk and share with you yet another book summary. Hopefully today it won't be as wet as what it's been throughout the week. It's just been non-stop rain, but today we're going to go through a book which is going to give us a few tips on how to make the most of our relationships. And the book is entitled, let me just grab my notes, I Hear You by Michael S. Sorenson. For those who are not aware, I'm rapidly closing on 1,300 vlogs in English. I think this one here is 1,298. And here we have a rainbow. But this is not just any rainbow. This is a real rainbow. This is the 7 or more color rainbow. How many colors are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 colors in this rainbow. How interesting. Anyway, I don't know what this is all about, but I guess we'll soon find out. But we'll just pass through the rainbow and head up the International Passenger Terminal and continue. So once again, another message about always was and always will be. I don't know where all this identity politics will lead us, but I guess from my perspective as a Christian, I can always say that Australia always was and always will be God's land, and we all are entitled to our quiet enjoyment of God's land. Let me just get out of the way because it's starting to rain. As soon as I said that the rain had stopped, was an invitation for it to start again. Let me go over here and I'll continue my vlog shortly. Oh my God, it just never stops raining in this city. For those who blame climate change, yet another opinion. But I always remember Sydney as being a beautiful city, characterised by days of rain and days of dryness, flood, and scorched earth. Anyway, let's continue along our way and see where this book summary leads us. So the author kicks off the book with a quote where they say that more often than not, people who vent or complain usually already know how to handle their current situation. They're just looking for someone to see and appreciate their struggle. So an important lesson, I think, for all of us to not get sucked into the vortex of people around us who complain all the time, thinking that they're seeking our help, because basically what they're doing is they're just venting in order to let us know what they're feeling, what they're going through, rather than asking us to solve their problem. Because most of us are smart enough, most of us are capable enough to deal with our problems on our own and get through them, but we just want others around us to know that what challenges they face, what crosses they are carrying, to, I guess, just acknowledge their pain and suffering. The bottom line is all of us, people in general, tend to be social and in need of connection. And what I'm saying is most people are like this, not all people. Not all people are social. There are some people who prefer to spend their lives by themselves, with themselves, and away from people, depending on what sort of traumas they've had in their lives. Some people just don't trust people at all and keep people at a distance, which I guess leads to further problems sooner or later. But in general, this author here reminds us that most people are social and are in need of a connection with others in order to live a balanced life. I guess the bottom line is that you need people around you. You need family, you need community, you need connection with yourself and with others in order to feel integrated into a group. And the bottom line, I guess, I think we all can agree with this, is that if you have good relationships, if you have good family, good friends, good work peers, or people that you can get along with, they don't necessarily need to be good themselves, but you need to be in a position to be able to get the most out of those connections. If you've got good relationships with others, you tend to feel happy and fulfilled. Whereas if you've got bad relationships with yourself or with others around you, then chances are that you're going to be miserable, sad, and unhappy. So connection with others, relationships with those around you and yourself are critical. And the bottom line, the call to action from this author, is that we all need to take responsibility and accountability as best we can for the relationships we have with ourselves and the relationships we have with others, to at least be positive, constructive, collaborative, and be able to try and work and bring out the best in ourselves and the best in others, because by mastering those skills, we will have a better life ourselves, and will enable others around us to have a better life as well. So we need to basically master our own communication skills. So the big point, the big call to action from this book here is the importance of mastering our communication skills with ourselves and with others in order to lead and live a more productive and better life. So the first formal point to come out of this book is where the author says it all starts with us, and it all starts with us being more empathetic towards our interlocutor, I guess, to the other party. Haven't heard that word before, believe it or not. A new word for me, but the interlocutor. A good dialogue occurs between two persons, and sometimes those two persons could be me, myself, or it could be with somebody else. But a good dialogue, according to the author, occurs when one person listens, the other person shares, and both need to take turns at listening and sharing. So it's a little bit like a relay race where you need to hand over the baton to the other party for them to have a turn at sharing, and for the other person or the other party to have a turn at listening. So it's about listening and sharing. And most people are probably good, most people are good at sharing, according to the author, at sharing, but not all people are good at listening. So once again, the call to action is to try and do a little bit more and be a little bit more when it comes to listening to others. And the trick, according to this author, in order to listen well, you need to be empathetic, have an empathetic mindset where you try to put yourself in the other person's shoes momentarily, and not to adopt a victim mentality, but just to listen to what they're saying with respect and with empathy. And to do this, we need to remain calm and to acknowledge their frustration, and where possible to look for solutions together, but only when invited to look for a solution. Now, you shouldn't think that because somebody is sharing a challenge or a problem with you, they're asking you for their advice. This is the mistake that most people make, where they just think that because somebody is sharing a problem or a challenge with them, they're asking the other person for help. But it's not necessarily the case. They're just asking or they're just seeking the other person just to listen to what they have to say. The author goes on to say that there will be times in our lives where we are involved in conflict with ourselves and with other people. But most importantly, during that conflict, we need to acknowledge that our perspective is not necessarily the only or the absolute truth. We could be wrong in what we say and what we think, but it's important just to understand that what we that our position is not always right, and that conflicts. This is an important point. This is an important thing that I learnt years ago when I was working in my corporate life. That conflicts are good if they're managed well. They're only bad if they're managed poorly. So there is an opportunity, there is a reward for managing conflict in a productive and good way. And it's important to understand that each conflict that you come across is an opportunity to build a better relationship, is an opportunity to build a greater opportunity for other things. Because when you manage conflict properly and effectively, then what you do is you build trust, you build a bridge, and you build a stronger and deeper friendship with those who feel wronged. So it's an important learning process going through conflict, and how we respond to that conflict, how we respond to that problem is all important. So the author here says that in order to make the most of conflict and of relationships in general, we need to acknowledge the emotions and the feelings that the other person is expressing as best we can, by being by being or trying to put ourselves in their situation and see it from their point of view. And by acknowledging people's emotions and feelings is one way of diffusing a situation, because the other person drops or can drop their guard if you manage it well. So not only do you need to acknowledge somebody else's feelings, but you need to get them as well to acknowledge your feelings. So it's not just a one-way street, it's a dance where you're exchanging and acknowledging each other's feelings. So you need to ask them, or you need to respond to them and show genuine interest in understanding and acknowledging their feelings, even if you think their feelings are wrong. Because as Steve Covey once said in his book many years ago, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you need to understand before you're understood. So invest in understanding a little bit better how the other people are feeling, why they're feeling what they're feeling, in order to be able to then use that to leverage your own position and to find common ground. Because we're not going to be on the same page as everybody all the time. There are going to be differences in our lives, but rather than spending and investing all of our time trying to see and point out where we're different, you're better off spending and investing your time in identifying the common ground, what things you share in common, and build from there. That's the only place you can build from, rather than taking opposite ends of the spectrum and trying to come to a point of agreement. So as we said, and as this author reminds us, we need to acknowledge and validate the other person's position, even if we think it's wrong. I remember years ago being in meetings when I was working at Advantra, and we had a manager then, the Chief Financial Officer, whose name is Frank Coogans, and he always asked us, as part of the rules of the meeting, that when your turn comes to speak, the first thing you need to do is to acknowledge the other person's perspective and to repeat, to paraphrase what the other person before you, or whoever you're responding to, paraphrase what they've said, and just basically show the respect and show that you understand their position and what they're talking about, rather than just to be flippant and to not even bother to show that you've listened or you've understood the point that the other person's made. So once you've made the point, once you've acknowledged and validated the other person's comment or position, that's when you can offer your suggestion and put forward your position. So this is a very, very powerful tool, a very, very powerful lesson that I guess we can all incorporate into our communication style, and that is to acknowledge and validate another person's opinion before we start talking about and expressing our own position on a particular topic. And as we said before, we need to acknowledge and validate what other people are saying without offering advice, without interfering, because what people hate most is when other people poke their nose into other people's business. There are times where I've absolutely cracked up in the past when I heard somebody say to somebody else that I'm going to hospital tomorrow to have a major operation. And the person was shocked and said, "What sort of operation are you going to have?" And they said that I'm going to go and have your nose surgically removed from my backside. So once again, acknowledge and validate without giving advice. Don't interfere. You need to validate and to accept and see the other person's pain and suffering, and to offer advice only if you're asked to offer advice. My experience to date in life is that nobody wants to hear your advice. Very, very rarely do I ever get asked for my advice. People are just not interested. Nobody's interested in other people's advice, because as we said earlier in the piece, most people know how to solve their problems. Everything is figure-outable. And these days people are probably more comfortable in going to Google or going to another source to seek solace and to seek advice. And nobody respects elders anymore or seeks advice from elders, because everybody thinks that they are in a better position to understand what the solution is for their particular problem. So as we said, only offer advice if you're asked to offer advice. All you need to do is validate, even if you don't agree. So people just want to vent, people just want to share and overshare because it nurtures them, it makes them feel comfortable. I don't agree with the oversharing bit, because what you're doing is you're giving other people ammunition to attack you later on. But in these days and ages, people are more comfortable, I guess, in oversharing, given that we've got social media to facilitate that process. But I think that'll do for today. So thank you very much for joining me on this YouTube channel entitled Jim's 5am Club. And as you can see, we've got the first light for the day. It's not fully and overly cloudy, so we may have a break in the weather pattern. Looks like the rain may be on hold for this Friday, which will give us an opportunity to hopefully have a dry weekend, the first weekend in March, the first weekend in autumn. So thank you once again for going on a walk and talk with me, for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club, where hopefully we've learnt something a little bit more about how to get the most out of our relationships, and understanding the importance of listening, the importance of sharing, and the importance of acknowledging, caring, being empathetic, and not offering advice unless asked to offer advice. So the ferries are on the run. I don't know which one that is, I can't see it from here, but a beautiful sight. I can never get enough of Circular Quay and just watching the ferries, the hustle and bustle. That's the freshwater. I can finally make out that that's the freshwater heading off to Manly, and hopefully kicking off a wonderful Friday for each and every one of us. Anyway, take care, yasas, bye for now, and have a great rest of the day and a great weekend. Take care, bye.